This is Scott Bach-Hansen, Vice President, Training and Development for Cardinal Basketball Officials Association, IBO Board 255, and today we're going to talk about being a crew chief and responsibilities that come with that. So let's get right into it. So I think the first thing is, what does being a crew chief mean to you? Well, there's some basics. Okay, so we notify our crew, we confirm with our crew the game, when the game is, make sure everybody's on the same page. That way we don't have anybody missing. We lead the pregame. We also, as crew chief, make sure we get the crew mentally focused. And, that may be including, I think the big thing is how we're going to handle bench decorum. And one of the things that's really important about that is just understanding relationships that a crew chief may have with coaches. We have different personalities as officials and different personalities as coaches, so it may change from game to game. We also want to make sure that we take care of the reports that are necessary. Sometimes the commissioner will ask us to write a report based on whether we have a technical foul, an injury, an ejection, whatever that issue may be. We're on top of it so that we take care of the aspects of the reporting that our commissioner needs as well. So I think the big thing with being a crew chief is also having leadership skills. So, what is leadership? Well, to me, it's getting everybody involved. We got to have everybody involved. We want to have positive interaction with the crew outside the lines from the first time we see each other that night. We sit together, watch the JV game. There's some small talk, how's the family and that stuff. But it's also, hey, what have you seen this year? Any crazy plays? Did you see that play on Huddle? Whatever it is that may help you get ready for the game and have positive interaction will help set the tone as a crew. The other piece to that is the interaction with the crew on the court. So, it's really important for us to communicate effectively and regularly during the game, whether it's with our voice or with hand signals or just eye contact. Just having that communication on a regular basis will make things better for everyone. And with that comes making sure we're doing things the right way all the time. So I want to make sure that we are doing the right rotations and switches, we're using the right mechanics, not just because we're on video and on Huddle, but a lot of times it's because those signals and the mechanics are there to make sure that we understand what each other is doing. It's a form of communication. And we have younger officials that are looking up to us and emulating what we do. So I think it's going to be really important for us to make sure that we do the things the right way so that we don't lose focus. And, that's one of the things that the leader can really, the crew chief can really help with their leadership skills. So I think the biggest piece to the leadership skills is game management. Game management is a really important piece of being a crew chief. Knowing who our game management is when we walk in the gym, whether it's the AD, the DSA, another coach. Sometimes it might be a mix between that as well as police officers that are come to our games and they stand in the corners. Sometimes we may have to engage them. But I think the game management aspect is what happens if is a great question because you can kind of go in a bunch of different directions. How are we going to handle these certain situations? What happens if we have unruly fans? A fan touches a player, curses at a player. We have laser pointers that are used. A noisemaker, an artificial noisemaker, is used by the home team while the visitors are shooting free throws. How are we going to handle that? What do the rules tell us we can do? And maybe what does the elastic rule of Rule 2-3 allow us to maybe consider doing with some common sense in that area as well? Whether it be replacing free throws or what have you, we want to make sure that we are taking care of business in the right way. One of the things I've seen at both the high school level and the college levels is sometimes the crowd will storm the court at the end of a game and the game's not over yet. But there's a thing in the rule book that tells you that the referees can enforce a technical foul on the followers of a team for delaying or stopping the game, basically for running on the court. But it says only to give a technical foul if it's absolutely necessary. And a lot of times we just look at that and say, well, it's absolutely necessary. But I like to look at it this way, and I think it's really important to understand this. If the clock is stopped and it's not interfering with the flow of the game, maybe we're putting time back on the clock, maybe there's a foul and the horn sounds, but we know we're going to put time back on the clock. It's not interfering with the game. So let's pay attention to that aspect, because that would not necessarily mean that we have to put a technical foul on the board. We need to be very understanding of this, because that's an impact play that can change the game. However, if the clock is running and they're throwing a long pass and fans are running on the court and it interferes with that player being able to catch the ball and get a shot off, then absolutely we can enforce the technical foul at that point. But it's not a hard, fast rule, and I think sometimes people mistake that, and that could get us in trouble. So let's pay attention to that. The other thing is, what happens if you have an injured partner? How are you going to handle that? Are other people in your crew capable of being able to step up? Whether it be the clock operator, maybe there's a JV official that's still there that can get dressed again. Maybe you have to go two-person. But it's one of those things that you have to learn how are you going to handle this. If there's a person that's working at the table, whether it be one of the books or the clock, they're shaking their head no, and you need to address that, get game management involved. Sometimes maybe you have to have them removed. Or maybe you just say, you know what, we're going to have the visitor book be the home book now. And we'll find somebody else to do the home book if we're going to have that kind of issue. So, just taking care of the game management things and thinking about, what happens if will be a really important piece. So, the other thing about being a crew chief is who's in charge. And a lot of times, we could be a crew chief for most of the season, but we find ourselves in a U1 or U2 spot later in the year. I would tell you that I would say 2/3 to 3/4 of the time, I'm also a crew chief, but I'm also understanding that I can get into a role of being a U1 or U2 and just and allow somebody else to lead, and sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do. So if you find yourself as a crew chief most of the time, and now you're a U1 or U2, allow the crew chief to lead. Let's let them lead this team of officials for this night. They're the crew chief for a reason. They were picked for a reason. So let's make sure that we allow them to lead the pregame. Let's not hijack the pregame. Let's contribute when we're asked to contribute. We need to know our role. We don't necessarily need to jump into conversations with coaches if it's one of those things where we need help. Okay, the crew chief will ask us if the help is needed. Basic stuff at the table, taking care of clock or scoring issues, fine. But when it comes to if we have to get the coaches together, the crew chief should lead that. Unless you're sick, you've given a technical foul or two, and you want to avoid any potential big challenge, that's going to be very few and far between. So, the crew chief is got the responsibility to take care of that situation for a number of reasons. So, we need to have the fortitude to stand up and do it. The key thing that you'll learn is that when it's black and white, we're very good. Everybody can referee in black and white. When we get into gray areas is where we have an issue, and a lot of that happens because we don't spend enough time in the rule book, and we end up getting in trouble, whether it be not having enough free throws for a technical foul, the spot of a play, how we adjudicate certain rules. It's a big piece to the puzzle. We have to know the rules. And if we're not good at the rules and we have a partner that is, we need to be able to trust our partners. And we need to get together in these kind of situations and make sure that we talk, because it's going to be important. The crew chief's also in charge of the table, the clock, the books. Anything that happens over there, it's our responsibility as the crew chief to make sure that everything goes smoothly. They're on our team. We want them to feel welcome. But if there's a situation that we have to address to make the game better, then we need to do that. A big piece for communication is halftime, timeouts, post-game. So at halftime, we want to talk, hey, are we on the same page? Is our call selection, right? Or, do we have too many game interrupters? How are our hand checks working out on both ends of the court? Do we have block charges happening, illegal screens? Do we have them in a flow? Maybe we need to tighten up. We don't want to change the way we referee from one half to the other, but we also want to make sure that we take care of the game in a positive way. So is there anything we need to change? We give every crew member the opportunity to speak, to share what they feel. And then at the end of the game, I like to talk about, hey, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And how can we get better? What are some of the things that we could do differently to be better as a crew or individually to have that be a positive? So as I wrap up, and again, I just want to spend about 12 minutes on this today. We need leaders, but the leaders have to really focus on these first two bullet points. We have to know the rules, and we have to read the case book. You can't just rely on your partners. You're not going to work with Mike Preston or Bill Thompson, Andy Schulman, Gil Mack, Scott Bach-Hansen, Ponce Gerald. You're not going to work with the guys that are strong in rules every single time. So you need to be able to, as a crew chief, be able to step up and be good in rules too. Don't take it for granted. Because when that gray area hits, we either get exposed or we shine. And I think we need to really focus on how can we shine in those gray areas. When it gets foggy, that's where we need to step up. So talk with other crew chiefs about situations. When you go to Brian's, hey, I had this situation, how would you handle it? As you're watching other games and you're seeing how crew chiefs handle things, maybe you say, you know what, I would do it differently. Let me talk to them. Let me find out from one of the other crew chiefs that I know. I'd watch as much video as I could get my hands on, huddle video, watch some of the clips that we're putting out there, share plays with each other, and just really take an interest in getting better. Because I think if we can do that, then we can all be on the same page, and we can be better as crew chiefs, and we can be better as U1s and U2s to support our crew chiefs so that we have a positive experience for the entire crew and for the game. So with that, again, I only want to spend about 12 minutes today because I know death by PowerPoint can really be difficult. But I want to thank you for taking time to watch this. And, if there's ways that we can help each other get better, then let's focus on doing that. So thanks again. Have a great rest of the season, and we'll talk to you soon.